business sort of starts and stops with Bitcoin without people starting to think about blockchain. But what is it about Bitcoin that makes it just so impossible for Wall Street to use it as a currency?
You know, there are a lot of things that Wall Street executives have to worry about when they're considering whether to start adopting this thing, right? I mean, there's fraud. I mean, these banks have regulations. They have anti-money laundering regulations. And big banks are seen as a place where people can safely put their money. And they have a reputation for that. So do they want to risk that reputation by adopting an asset that is seen as a risky, volatile asset?
And so the very volatility of the asset makes it hard for a bank to maintain its reputation.
Yes, yeah.
It's also interesting to me that the know your customer rules, and I think that a lot of people, even in the digital currency space, don't really understand how sacrosanct it is in the markets. That the KYC rules, know your customer, is so important. It's about money laundering and more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we've seen so many executives come out in the last month, right? I mean, we saw Jamie Dimon. He came out and said, Bitcoin's one big fraud. I'm going to fire any trader who trades Bitcoin. We saw Larry Fink come out and talk about how Bitcoin...
CEO of BlackRock.
Yes, CEO of BlackRock, come out and talk about how much Bitcoin is used in crimes. We had the chairman of UBS come out and say that he's skeptical. Although we did actually have a couple execs come out and give sort of more balanced views. We had Morgan Stanley's CEO come out and say, you know, this might have some sort of future. I'm not totally convinced that it's nothing. And Goldman's CEO also came out and said, I haven't quite made a decision on it yet.
Right.
You know, he actually brought up an interesting point, which is that people once viewed paper money as this weird thing. So who's to say that Bitcoin is not, you know, the same?
Well, and interesting that Lloyd Blankfein comes from a trading part of that business, even before it's part of Goldman Sachs, but comes from a trading background and maybe understands just the trading nature of it, maybe more than Jamie Dimon.
Yeah.
But there's also the aspect that Jamie Dimon's business, on some level, is about having lots of fingers in the pie when things go from, when money's moved from one account, you write a check and it goes to another account and it takes 3 days and there's all kinds of stuff involved and charges that happen in the way. That's JP Morgan's business. If you trade a stock on a JP Morgan platform, it moves from one hand to the next, to the next, to the next, and recording all those transactions is a part of JP Morgan's business. If blockchain can take all that away, JP Morgan loses all that business.
Right. I mean, that's... When you think about why Bitcoin was created in the first place, like it was created to, in a way, displace these centralized big banks. I mean, why use a big bank if I can just give you money instead of going through the bank to give you money? I mean, that was the whole point of Bitcoin. So it's obviously like smart of these banks to be thinking about this as a potential risk.